Listen, Monday, second hour. That means my good buddy, Michael Howsam, sunny Southern California. Michael, what's up, dude?
Hey, man, how's it going? How are you?
I'm great. How was your Father's Day weekend?
My Father's Day was fantastic. Happy Father's Day back to you, man. We had played with my kids, made a bunch of prime steaks from Costco, hung out at the pool. It was perfect.
Man, it's good weather here, too. I was surprised. Well, I wasn't. It was hot. Listen, we're going to talk in a little bit about someone else who had a good weekend, and that would be our president. You wrote the images were stunning, by the way, that you put up, but we're going to have to talk about that.
Right.
But a couple of other questions here. Tony Gwynn, man. Did you see that? He died. Did you see where he died?
I did. I grew up in San Diego. So the Padres were a huge part of my life, and San Diego State, where he finished out his life kind of coaching batting there. But Tony Gwynn was a huge part of my youth, being a big fan of Padre baseball, man.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. And, that dude, now let me back up the bus just a little bit. Being a diehard, long life, this is as masochistic as hell, Cubs fan. You may remember that series where the Cubbies went up and then the Padres spanked them 3 straight, and I was devastated. But that's just a long line. But you talk about a class act. Tony Gwynn's picture is on the cover of that.
Yep.
So anyway, I didn't know.
Class act for the entire time that he was. He played for 19 years, started in 84 with the Padres.
20 years, same team forever.
Yeah. Right. And before that, he was at San Diego State University. So, his entire college and pro career was, in both cases, right down the street from where I grew up. And there was, with his... 5 Golden Glove awards and Silver Slugger awards and 8 times batting champ. There was never, ever a thing about him. No craziness. Just a class act all the way around.
And I played baseball through a couple of years of college, so I know a little bit about the sport. That guy.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Yeah, okay, that's awesome.
Thank you. But what the point is, I know of whence I speak here, but he was you talk about a pure hitter. That guy was awesome. Like I said, maybe 8 batting titles or whatever. And never an issue, just a class act. And that was a shame. Maybe you guys out there knew he was sick or whatever, but I didn't. I just remember him a lot, and I looked up to him and whatever have you. But part of the reason I bring it up is do you know what his Indiana connection is? His Indianapolis connection is?
You know what? I don't. Tell me.
I knew you didn't, which is why I brought it up. So in 1993, he moved his family about 4 blocks from my house in Fishers, Indiana, a nice suburb of Indianapolis.
Really?
You don't know? Yes, and you are, I can tell by the tone in your voice. You're thinking, come on, dude, really? But look it up. I forget why they came here. It was something for his wife. His wife came here to do something. She may be from the area. I don't, this is a long time ago. But they loved it here, and they thought it would be a great place, school systems and the like. Fishers kind of wins, it's like safest place and this and that. But anyway, he thought it'd be a good place to raise his kids, school system and stuff. So, I don't know how long he was actually here, because I know, didn't he come back out there and he was coaching at San Diego State or somewhere doing something? But yes, that's a true story.
Tony Gwynn was a Hoosier. That's right. Yeah, and I'm going through, as we're talking about it, I'm pulling up a couple of websites, and I don't even see a mention about until Gwynn's death, he split time between homes in Poway, California, which is kind of North San Diego County, and Fishers, Indiana.
See, there you go. So you learned something about Tony Gwynn from a Hoosier.
I knew that he was sick, but since '97, Gwynn has had 3 procedures to remove non-cancerous growth from his parotid gland. In 2010, he was diagnosed with cancer of the salivary gland, had both lymph nodes removed. Gwynn attributed his cancer to the dipping tobacco habit he had since playing rookie ball in Washington in 1981.
Yeah. What a class act he was, man. Speaking of class acts, wow. I got to flip the coin over. I got one more Cali story to talk to you about. Apparently, a fellow Californian, I'm guessing he obviously legally lives there, I'm guessing, but I see where George Clooney thinking about running for governor of your golden state. Did you see that?
No, I did not know that.
This is part of why Hausum joins the show, because I tell him stuff about his own state that he doesn't know. But yeah, Clooney planning to run now. The friends are saying that.
Oh wow!
So he's
I just see this right here. It's an International Times article that Barack Obama's the Democratic Party urged the former Hollywood bachelor to take the challenge. Look at that. So, this is an article that is just a couple hours old. Well, interesting. Yeah. He wasn't on the ballot, obviously. Oh God, there's all kinds of stuff about this.
They're talking about the 2018 race,
right? Oh, okay. So after Governor Moonbeam wins in a landslide against the former Democrat Republican guy that we just put up, Clooney's going to be our guy.
You got it. And
we've had a history of actors, of course, as governor. The favorite thing about my birth certificate is the stamp at the bottom that says Ronald Reagan, Governor of California. Exactly. Obviously now, that's awesome. Where we had, the Terminator as governor, hyper successfully for a while.
Mm-hmm. Clooney said he would never do this. He said, and I love this quote, and it was true, and how many of us would admit it if it was applicable, but he famously declared he'd never run for office. And the quote, I'm looking at the story that caused me to talk to you about this, but he said he'd, quote, slept with too many women, done too many drugs, and been to too many parties to enter into politics. Well, apparently that doesn't make any difference in out there. So anyway, yeah, that's what you got.
Well, that certainly didn't stop.
You got to look forward to after Governor
Arnold Schwarzenegger from running.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that's what you got. That's what you got to look forward to, man.
Apparently, we like our governors out here to be free of any kind of rational thought. Yet we also like them to be highly sexed. So that's awesome.
Yes, and if you're from Hollywood, you're famous. It's there you go. So anyway, Father's Day weekend. You had a good weekend. I had a good weekend. Barack Obama had a great weekend, right?
Barack Obama had a hell of a weekend.
I wrote that. Let me preface this. No. You go ahead, and then I will tell you. And maybe you saw it, but the snarky headline I put on Facebook, the faux headline about what we're about to talk about. So, please tell us, what did Barack Obama do? We got Iraq in flames. We've got everything else going on. So, what did our president do this weekend?
Well, it's funny. Let me even taking a quick step back from that before I put up this post late Saturday night. I knew that he was going to be in Orange County speaking for the UCI graduation. And UCI is literally the perimeter of its campus is a few hundred yards from my place here in Newport Beach. Right.
Oh, no kidding.
I'm really, really close to the UCI campus. So I figured that at some point Saturday, traffic around my place was going to be a nightmare.
And you didn't shoot over there and try to get an interview or autograph?
I thought about it.
And then you got sane. Okay. All right. So it's close to
Saturday
you. And
morning,
then what happened?
I left my place early at about 7:30 with my son. We had to go up into LA for something. And we drove right next to the Anaheim. The Los Angeles.
And the Los Angeles Anaheim Angels.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, California, or whatever their crazy name is.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm driving up the 57 freeway, and at just before 8 o'clock in the morning, the parking lot is completely full. There's a huge, big tent city out in the parking lot, and the stadium looks to be about half full. And I'm thinking, geez, that's early for a baseball game. And then when we came back by a few hours later, the stadium was almost completely full, and there was a ton of stuff going on. And it was shortly after that I discovered that literally at the time I was driving down the freeway, the president was giving his address at the Anaheim Stadium. So I literally observed the thing going on.
Lucky you.
Which I suppose if I look back upon it now, I couldn't see into the bottom of the stadium where he was, but I could see, where he was. So that may actually have been the high point of my weekend.
Oh, without a question.
Right. I mean, I was within a few hundred yards of the president, which is great. So what his weekend was, first of all, he flew Air Force One into Palm Springs, right? And then he stayed at a house in Thunderbird Cove in Rancho Mirage, do you know Palm Springs area at all, Mike?
I do. I have been there twice.
All right. Well, Rancho Mirage is one of Palm Springs itself is kind of not the nicest area of the area out there.
Right.
Rancho Mirage is kind of where all the one of the two areas where the biggest and highest dig golf courses and estates are in Rancho Mirage. So he stayed out there. And then Saturday morning, he flew Air Force One from Palm Springs Airport to Orange County Airport to do a fundraiser in Laguna Beach, just right down the street from me again. Fundraiser in Newport Beach. Then he flew the helicopter, Marine One, out to UCI to give a commencement speech, which we should probably read some of the text off of that. Then he flew Air Force One back to Palm Springs and supposedly spent Sunday watching the U.S. Open as well as playing some golf himself.
As the world burns. Anyway,
Absolutely
I put up when I learned what he was doing, that he was going to be in your neighborhood, I put just on Facebook, I linked, I don't know who did it, Zip on Weasel Zippers or Moon Battery or whatever, but I saw the story and that got my snark going. And so I put a faux headline on Facebook, all caps, and I said, as Iraq descends into chaos, Barack Obama huddles with advisors. And then, of course, the next line was, just kidding, he was playing golf in Rancho Mirage. So, right. Unbelievable. That's
I
funny.
had, there was not a few friends noted to me that he was literally in my backyard for a big part of Saturday.
Yeah. Literally, right? And you should have, again, you should have gotten an IJR exclusive. And I'm sure if you told him who you were and what you believed in and so forth, he would have been glad to talk to you.
I'm just not sure I'm the guy that would be getting a press pass access to the kind of things that he had going on. Maybe I could, but I just, I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not. I don't think any of us would have much of a chance. So anyway, all right. So you had some good stuff up this weekend, brother.
Did you now maybe when I came on, I was listening in and you were talking about some of the climate change comments. Was that the context of the speech that he gave at UCI?
Yeah, he was ridiculing Republicans.
Right.
That they and of course, I mean. Earlier in the week, I want to say Wednesday, I guess it doesn't make any difference. He was speaking at a high school somewhere, and he turned that into a political event. This guy is just nonstop, ever-ready bunny, ridiculing Republicans, blaming Republicans for everything. And it's just what he does. It's who he is. It's his job. So, yeah, that's where those quotes came from. And I had talked about him in the first hour. but I had left that quote out. And
right,
it just was kind of like an itch, I had to scratch it after we came back from the news. But
right. Well, I find it just particularly interesting. You've got, he's got these college graduates that he's standing there talking to, and UCI the UC system is incredibly difficult to get into. So these are the smartest and top kids in any public institutions in the state of California, right? My nephew didn't get into UCI, and his, a GPA north of 4.0, incredibly good SAT scores, and a list of athletic and public service type stuff that goes on for pages. He couldn't get in.
Wow.
So, it's not like it's a local city college that he's speaking to. So he's speaking to these folks, and these are college kids that are going off into, dismal job prospects for college graduates right now. Do you think dismal would be a good word to use?
I think that's probably a baseline, yeah.
All right. And so the thing that he talks to them about is how important their contribution is going to be for the important dramatic action needed to stop climate change. That's what he sent these college graduates off to their lives with. It just...
Right, and of course, we saw him do that at West Point, right? He talked to the military. These guys, West Point guys. It's West Point. It's UCal Irvine. It's NASA. Everybody's supposed to be focusing on global warming right now. So I guess my question to you, Michael, would be, and maybe it's, I don't know, the fact that it's a California university, but would that student body be generally liberal, or would it not?
Oh, absolutely. Like any college town, especially public college, it's very liberal.
You're right. And you're right. Scratch California. Right. Any large universities.
Any large college, especially here in California. Now, one of my, a particular hobby of mine is putting up on Instagram pictures of cars that have, to me, hilarious bumper stickers covering the back of them. And I always have the comment that that whoever it is that owns this particular car is my cosmic counterweight from a political perspective.
That's
and
right.
I find as many opportunities for taking pictures around UCI campus as if I'm in Santa Monica, just because of the crazy that I see.
Well, it's just because it's there. Yeah. Hey, listen, while I'm thinking about it, and we do this about every other show, because Michael posts hilarious stuff on Facebook, Instagram. He's got the hashtag thing going on. Tell the folks, other than IJR, and we've talked about that quite a bit. One of our main contributors on IJR, but tell the folks again how they can follow your other stuff, because, dude, you're hilarious.
Thank you. My blog, which is mphouse.us, mphaus.us. Some stuff that the editors at IJR kick out goes there, plus some funny stuff that I do. Stuff like this radio show will be up there later. But then also on Twitter, at mphouse. MPHAUS on Twitter is where the cosmic counterweight bumper sticker photos and things like that go.
And see, the folks need to go there, because you come on the show, and you're, this kind of semi-straight-laced political commentator. You do the same thing on IJR, but these people don't know the real you, and I do. So, and that's a compliment, by the way, because that's a compliment, because you and I are like twin sons from different mothers. So they got to go read your stuff, man.
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you.
All right. So, let's see. We've got about 5 minutes. We've got a few things I want to cover that you were on fire again this weekend. But you pick. We got 5 minutes. We got this poll about the admired presidents, the Reagan thing. We'll save that till after the news, because we got a clip and you and I need to talk about that. And then again, and this is probably a save, you hit one of my favorite topics, which again, we've already alluded to it, and I talked about it in the context of Obama in the first hour, but climate change. So what do you think?
Oh, yeah, let's quickly hit that climate change one. That's just pretty interesting. There has been all year long lots of information about how the Antarctic ice pack is the largest that they've seen since, oh gosh, they really started actively tracking the ice pack in Antarctica in the 70s, right? Well, the size of the ice pack is in Antarctica is largest at any time since they've measured.
Record numbers last fall.
Record numbers. So just as you could imagine, the Chicken Littles on the global warming or climate change folks are looking for any kind of stories they can. One of the things they've discovered is that there's this particular western glacier that is calving off at significant amounts, and there's been a bunch of research done that suggesting that warm temperatures from the water is affecting the glaciers, and possibly somewhere between the next 20 to 1,000 years, if all of those glaciers go, the level of the oceans will rise, and then there's catastrophic problems as a result, right?
Exactly.
All right, so that's a background. In fact, I don't know if I can say this, National Geographic, The Guardian, and Mother Jones all had big articles about this. And the Mother Jones article was entitled, "This is what a holy shit moment for global warming looks like." And the combination of computer models and assumptions, forecasting from the last 40 years of information that the oceans are going up, right? Yeah. Well, entering into that, a research grant, or not a research grant, but a report from a research university in Texas has discovered that volcanic activity and geothermal heat is actually more responsible for the changes in the glaciers there than anything else that they can figure out.
Yeah. And of course, you won't hear that from Brian Williams on the nightly news.
No, you will not. So it's so interesting. The context is the largest ice pack ever, which runs contrary to the global warming climate change deal. They've kind of figured out a way of putting together computer models so that slight changes they've seen in glaciers, if it continues for the next 1,000 years, we could have a problem. But less than 2 weeks go by and they've discovered, wait a second, there's all this geothermal heat in the ground under Antarctica that has more to do with than anything else.
Yeah, and it's hilarious because the left accuses the right of ignoring science, hating science, yet its selectivity in what it chooses to quote or cite is ridiculous. You know, you talked about models. I mean, the NASA scientists, former NASA scientists, earlier this year, 97% of all climate models since 1979 wrong. Statistics that say I think we're at 17 years and 8 months now or whatever. The climate not warming, planet not warming. They ignore that stuff, yet they accuse us of ignoring science, right?
Right, absolutely. Well, the whole climate model thing. One of the guys, one of the researchers for this University of Texas thing, he said that the complexity of the heat influences, the instability of the glaciers, as well as the fairly short history that we have data, make it impossible to put together
Michael, we got a break for the news, brother. We'll be right back. This is a Mike Nolan. Welcome back. I am joined by my good buddy Michael Hausum of IJR. Incidentally, and we get after Obama quite a bit. I think rightly so, but you need to check out Michael's post on IJR. That's IJReview.com about what we were talking about, Obama jetting off for the weekend, and just look at the pictures. I mean, this is a nice place. And listen, fine. He works hard. Wink, wink. He deserves a break here and there, but again, while Iraq burns, everything else is turning to poop, if you will, beneath this guy. I mean, the vacations, they just keep coming, the long weekends. So anyway, Michael, I figured it was better for me to cut you off than have the computer do it. We were talking about the global warming thing, which, again, the left selective use of data. But do you have any final thoughts on that post, that topic?
It's just the idea that they put in assumptions in models in areas that the University of Texas guy says, look, you've got instability, complexity, and a relatively short period of history where they have knowledge. To turn that into a model, that's the equivalent of me putting a model together over the last 45 minutes of my life, forecasting my income for the next 40 years. I mean, it's all assumption based.
You know, I've followed this for literally for years. I mean, when back to, I suppose, when Al Gore started the hysteria. But I mean, the stuff is just, it's gone on, and it's the same thing all the time. It's selective use of data. It's the flaws in the models. Do you remember, and this goes back at least 3, 4, 5 years now, but when it was discovered that these thermometers that they were placing around the world, like at the end of runways at airports, this is why it's a political agenda. And, you know, my mind is I mean, I guess secondarily, I believe it's to placate, to exploit, to pander to the tree huggers, the environmentalist wackos, as Rush calls them. But in my mind, it is about wealth redistribution. You know, be that cap and trade, you know, carbon offsets, or the loony thing at the UN. You know, if it gets its way, that would be massive wealth redistribution, billions, maybe trillions of dollars between the U.S. obviously is a big culprit. Of course, China being excluded as a culprit because it's not quite yet unquote developed, nor is Russia. But it's redistribution of wealth. I mean, what do you think is behind their whole deal?
Yeah, well, it kind of tracks into a little bit about the Reagan quote that we're going to talk about. The left has given up the government actually, well, in part given up the idea of the government taking over and directly dictating. So if they can legislate it or have, you know, governmental agencies requiring certain types of compliance and activities, they'll functionally obtain the same results without it being a direct legislative action. And that's certainly what I think is going on. Offsetting the evils of capitalism in order to bring about fairness and equality via save the planet chicken little hysteria is really what I think is happening.
You know, and your point about the government taking over, I mean, they have such an excellent track record. You know, we only need to go so far back as Amtrak and the post office and what they're doing to the healthcare system in this country. I mean, the government doesn't exactly have a very good track record, do they?
I have to stop you right there, because what you're doing, this is a fallacy. What you're using facts, and you're using history as a way to inform future activities and decisions. And I'm getting tired of telling you that it's hoped for results and promises for the future that are really the only basis upon which you can evaluate anything. To start looking at what's happened in the past, things are too important. If I could revise a little Ayn Rand here, things are too important. The status of things is too difficult for us to take the time and try to sort through what's happened. The important thing is what we're doing going forward.
So if I understand what you're saying, my stubborn and irresponsible and right-wing, probably, reliance on facts and history is cold and calloused, because what I really should be focusing on is emotion and intent, right?
Yes, things are too critical for us to be bogged down in an analysis of the mere things that have happened in the past. Because those things that have happened in the past, who knows if they're going to happen again in the future. The important thing is doing something now.
I get it.
And on what basis can we make a plan to do something now other than what things we hope happens in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I never made the connection. I mean,
I'm kind of getting tired of reminding you about that, quite frankly.
well, see, this is part of why. I mean, this is just another value added thing of why I need you. You know, I need to have you come on. I mean, you and I talk quite a bit. We message and stuff because you got to keep reminding me because, you know, I'm a closet analytic. I mean, I have a tendency to stubbornly, like I say, rely on facts, data, and history. And,
those are important when it comes to theoretical discussions. But when it comes to what are we going to be doing, they really don't have a place.
Listen, we're waiting for Jessica to get back on the board. She stepped away momentarily, and we're going to have to play that Reagan clip. But Ronald Reagan, man, right? I think that he nailed it, didn't he?
He did nail it. I forget, somebody had posted this. I forget where I saw it. It came up somewhere. That it was kind of a throwback because it's obviously a long, long time ago. And I was just listening to what he had to say about fascism and conservatism and libertarianism and liberalism. And my first thought was, you know, the only thing he could have done to be more prophetic in talking about governmental involvement in life, if he had said, hey, by the way, 40 some years from now, spring, early summer 2014, play this clip again and see if it doesn't describe exactly the world that you're living in at that time. I mean, that would be the only thing he could have done to have been more prophetic than what it was that he said.
And you're completely spot on. And, you know, part of what I think is hilarious about Reagan has enjoyed maybe sooner. In fact, I think I was even surprised, you know, because he was vilified and, you know, he was a Hollywood dumb B movie actor and he was stupid and then he was senile. And I mean, they tried everything they could try. Right. And right. I thought it would take longer for him to, for his legacy to be rehabilitated, you know, over the objection of the left. And I think it just galls the hell out of many on the left that this guy was right. And and of course, there's always going to be the Kool-Aid drinkers and the lemmings that follow, you know, the leftist progressives off the cliff. But I mean, this guy's been proven right more than wrong, hasn't he?
Oh, gosh, absolutely. No question about it.
All right, so Jessica's back. Should we play that clip of you put this up on IJR over the weekend, and I thought it was a great grab, dude. But let's play that clip and talk about it.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian.
Well, always has been. Because how do we call a liberal? You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism. And what is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation. Well, isn't this the liberal philosophy? The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Yeah, dumb Hollywood B movie actor, senile Ronald Reagan. Nails it, Michael.
Right. What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and keyword regulation. Well, isn't this the liberal philosophy? The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny. Well, you know, did you ever read Jonah Goldberg's book, Liberal Fascism?
I did not. I've seen clips or excerpts from it, and I like Jonah Goldberg.
Yeah, well, it's an incredibly good book. It's fairly dense. The problem with the word fascism is that immediately what comes to mind is anti-Semitism, and it's dismissed. Well, there's no fascism going on here in America because, you know, we're not rounding up Jews. Well, the reality is that the anti-Jew part of the primarily the German fascism movement was kind of an outlier. Fascism as a governmental philosophy, hugely influential in the States in the 1920s, and then obviously into the 1930s as well, but especially in Western Europe. But the idea is that individuals and corporations continue to own property and the means of production, but the government controls and regulates every single activity that they're involved in.
And doesn't that ring a bell right now, right?
Oh, I mean, this was something I did probably a year ago, that you literally cannot pull out 30 minutes of activity in your day that you're not involved in multiple levels of local, state, and federal control and regulation, from your shower to your toilet paper to your food to your utensils to your dishwasher to your car to your carpet to your clothing to your computer to your phone. I mean, there's literally, other than your thoughts, thank God, there's nothing that you're doing on a daily basis, moment by moment, that isn't critically subject to government control and regulation.
And do you think, let's prognosticate a bit, okay? Obama's gone. Let's assume that whomever on the GOP side wins. We have a Republican president. Let's even go all the way out there and assume that in November this year, we being conservatives, GOP, takes back the Senate, holds on to it in 2016. Do you think that that would have a lot of impact on what we're talking about? Or is this a government has a life of its own? The bureaucracy is such that it's a toothpaste out of the tube thing, man. I mean, is it going to continue? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm going to have to differentiate between what I hope will happen and what I think will happen.
Sure.
What I think will happen is that the government mission creep will continue unabated. Unless, I mean, you remember Reagan and Gingrich and various other national leaders had put up lists of federal departments that were going to be crossed off and taken out of existence altogether. That is the only way that can happen. And it's the only way it can happen, but the hue and cry and whining and bitching and moaning, I'm not sure it could be overcome. I mean, if it was, what's the alphabet soup? We've got commerce and labor and education and EPA. I mean, there's a whole alphabet soup of cabinet level positions that if those things were gone tomorrow, it would be fantastic for everybody except for those that rely on those agencies for their lifestyle.
And see, I agree with everything you just said, which is why I have you on the show, because we don't have to argue. But no. As you went through that list, you hit the one that as soon as you started that comment, I thought of, and that's the Department of Education. What the hell business at the level it's involved does the federal government have in how we educate our children?
Other than agenda or none, Mike. And
no,
you could probably make a case that that there shouldn't even be that sort of thing in Sacramento, that County of Orange should be able to handle all its education stuff without the state of California, and the same in your state as well. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I mean, I get pretty cranked up, which is, again, why I write and why I talk and why you do too. But I mean, everything the government touches turns to poop. I mean, what does it do well other than when it wants to fight wars properly, which it hasn't done for, I suspect, quite a while? I mean, what else does it do well? I don't know of anything other than spend other people's money, as they say, and print money and borrow money from China. I mean, it's just, it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and the Department of Education, that's a Jimmy Carter era cabinet level department. I mean, it's been around for 40.
Right.
Well, its anniversary was on May 4th. May 4th of this year, the Department of Education was 34 years old.
And what's the state of public education? I like to call it government schools, as Neil Bort says. But I mean, the state of government schools in this country has never been worse.
No, I would say I'm none too fond. Right. Hey, I'm looking at the clock, man. We got to talk about this Clinton article that was so hilarious.
I want you to go there. You read my mind, brother. Hit it.
Right. Okay. So I have a buddy out here in California who is one of these true believer leftists. I mean, he is still adamant that every single thing that Obama touches turns to gold. And we have a constant ongoing discussion, which is hilarious. So I woke up on Saturday morning and he had posted on my Facebook wall this article that was in NBC, on NBC Online, that there was a new poll that was done that Bill Clinton's the most admired president over the last 25 years. And it was kind of a gotcha, ha, ha, ha. What do you think about this, Housem?
And they love that.
Love that. And we kind of do that sort of stuff to each other every once in a while. And so my first response is, oh, well, that's depressing. Geez, over this last 25 years, he's the top guy. So I opened it up and I started thinking about it. And I realized, well, wait a second. There are three huge, this whole thing, this is just political puff piecery. I mean, this is not news. This is not something to think about. The first thing that came to my mind was the time frame itself. You know, when you say, hey, man, over the last 25 years, this is what's happened, the presumption is that 25 years is a significant amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were to count over the last 25 years, the number of times you've played golf, that's a pretty big sample of time. Well, over the last 25 years, there's only been 4 presidents. So when you pick a time frame, if there's only 4 options, throw a dart and you've got a 25% chance picking one of these guys. The other thing,
and real quickly, and to an extent, I mean, and not discounting George Bush or Herbert Walker, it's kind of like winning the tallest midget contest, isn't it? So anyway, go ahead.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's not out of the last. So if they were to say of the last 4 presidents, Clinton is the one that is polled to be the highest, that's not an impressive statistic. Well, you realize also that the presidency, the 8-year presidency prior to the last 25 years is Reagan. And if you look at any top presidents of the last 50 years, top presidents of the last 100 years, top presidents ever, Reagan's always at the top.
Exactly.
In fact, the last 200-year and 50-year polls, Reagan is number 1 in both of those. So they couldn't do a poll going more than 25 years because Reagan's numbers would dwarf his. All right, so that's number 1. The number 2 thing I noticed that, good grief, Clinton got only 42%. So even out of the last 4 presidents, Clinton's overwhelming preference it doesn't exist because it's barely more than the 25% of the presidency that he represented. So the fact that they're trumpeting him being the top guy, he didn't even get a majority of the people voting over that, right? And then lastly, one of the comments that really stuck out at me on this, fairly short blurb, blah, 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 President Clinton, whose wife could very well run for the White House in 2016, blah, 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 on the actual article, I realized, okay, that's what this poll was about. This poll was about Hillary Clinton being president.
It's unbelievable. And let me interject here because there's a little bit of Housem's humor here. And we sometimes do this when we write. We will purposely put in a line and leave it there, obviously, and then line it out, if you will, draw a line through it, and to make a point. So he's talking about Hillary's book. And Housem says her new book, and this is lined out, languishing in the humor aisle of a bookstore near you. And then he goes on to say was released this week. So you line it out. Her new book was released this week. But, of course, the languishing in the humor aisle of a book near you. I thought that was funny, dude. And you know what? It's like 40% off on Books A Million right now. And it's behind some book about some green slime thing. Do this thing for 30 days or whatever and clean out your colon. So, I mean, it's not actually not going to cover off the ball, is it?
Well, a couple things. I think that if you eat the pages of this book, that might clean out your colon, number one. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Secondly, I would suspect...
Although, if you eat the pages, you're putting the same stuff in your colon that you're trying to clear out. So I'm not sure that necessarily would get that job done.
That's a good point. On the other hand, if you actually read the words... there might be a regurgitant effect to clean out your insides.
That's a good point. That's
the other side. Well, my thought about Hillary Clinton's book, and she's on every single news station, every single TV show to make comments or to then clarify comments or then to rebut responses to her comment clarification. My guess would be, I haven't looked to see how it is in terms of selling and such. My guess will be it'll probably be one of the very best-selling, never-read books of the last few years.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, it's kind of like Amway. It will be the Amway of books. So I don't know.
Right.
You know what? I put up the video. I think I did, and I thought it would do better and it did not this week on. But when she said, I'm totally done being really careful about what to say. Was that hilarious or what? Did you see that?
Gosh. It's like, are you kidding? You don't blink your eyes without a test focus group and PR consultation. Good grief.
So then she comes out, the dead broke thing was hilarious. The Taliban 5 pose a no threat to the U.S. Hilarious. But I mean, really? She's totally done being really careful what to say. I hope that's true, because I want her to continue. I mean, I think this book tour thing's been a disaster for her. And of course, the Clintonistas, they don't care. I mean, just like the Obama bots don't care what Obama does. I mean, I often said about Obama, he could set George Bush on fire, paint the White House red, and declare himself a whatever fill in the blank, and 75% of his followers would still follow him. That's the same thing with the Hillary followers, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I responded back to this buddy who posted this thing. I said, hey, man, thanks for the inspiration. And I put a link to the article, and we're up to like 47,000 views on this article, which is dwarfing the views from the NBC article itself. And I said, hey, so tell me about your comments about Hillary, because he's already made posts about Ready for Hillary and this and that. Give me just a couple of good reasons why you think she would be a great president. Aside from, handling the bimbo eruptions from her husband, moving to New York to buy herself a Senate seat, lots and lots and lots of physical travel around the country, around the world. Tell me some of the things that you look at and think, okay, you know what? This is an example of the type of leadership that we need to have in the Oval Office. I'm still waiting for him to respond.
I have an open offer on this show. I have for months. Tell me one thing Hillary has accomplished. P.S. Job titles are not accomplishments. Tell me one thing. I mean, we've posted several posts on IJR about it. It can't happen. Hillary can't do it. Her supporters in the media can't do it. The DNC committee members can't do it. They were I'm not sure who hit them. I think Dan Joseph a couple, 3 months ago. Nobody can list an accomplishment. Yet what did she say? I talked about this Friday. She came out and said her greatest accomplishment was establishing reestablishing respect. I'm paraphrasing her, but reestablishing respect for the United States and the world. Are you kidding me?
Oh, it's just crazy. Well, I don't know if you saw it. Caroline put up a post this morning. 9 videos showing nobody knows what Hillary has accomplished.
That was awesome.
We're joking earlier about history and facts informing future decisions, and she is the ultimate example of that. I mean, all of her positions politically fit the leftist worldview, and that is the entirety of the nature of support for her presidency, because there is no ability to point back and say, look what she did here. This is what we want for our country.
And of course, I mean, to our earlier point, when you question a Hillary supporter. My wife is one of those, and bad on me, my bad. I hate that term. But anyway, for marrying a liberal, I'm being facetious, but they get mad when you try to push them to tell you something that, you got Nancy Pelosi saying she's the most qualified person in modern history to be president. Yet you ask them why, and they get pissed off at you.
Right. Well, they'll talk about positions and hopes for the dreams for the future. But obviously nothing in the past. And what's going to happen, I presume that she'll be our president. Any criticism of her will be sexist, just like criticism of our existing president is racist.
You got it. Listen, we're out of time. I got Michael Housen. It flies by when that dude's on this show, but he'll be back next week. See you tomorrow. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, man. Love you. See you.